Hi there. My name is Stella O'Malley and I'm a psychotherapist based in Offaly. And I'm very happy to be giving this presentation on coping strategies for anxiety and stress because I find that a lot of people these days are experiencing stress, especially in the times we live in these days. And I released my book Fragile in 2019, and I had no idea at the time that it would be a year later, the world would blow up as regards stress and anxiety. And that's what's really happened. And when I released Fragile, I was talking about an epidemic of anxiety and how many people were coming to me as clients seeking strategies for anxiety and stress. And now it has got a good deal worse. And so I think it's very important to that we get our chance to kind of realize that there are strategies out there, there are things we can do, and that with the right strategies, we can feel much better. And so I hope that you will find this a helpful presentation. I suppose what I like to say quite early on whenever I meet a client who is stressed or anxious is to look at the definition. A good definition of anxiety would be, for example, an overestimation of the danger and an underestimation of our ability to cope. Very often, anxiety makes us go into our emotional brain where we're not at our most nuanced and we're not at our most intelligent either. And we tend to kind of see the world in black and white. And so we overestimate the danger. We think it's all a disaster. We underestimate our ability to cope. We generally will endure and cope with much more than we ever think we will. And so, for these reasons, when you are stressed and anxious, it can be very helpful to be almost like an anthropologist, to almost try and take the bird's eye view like a scientist would on what is exactly going on here. Am I overestimating the danger? Am I underestimating my ability to cope? What is the reality as opposed to what is the very stressful version of events? This is a kind of a quick test. Most people are either a drowner or a blocker. Very often drowners meet and marry blockers. I myself am a drowner and I'm married to a blocker. Very common combination. Some people are drowners in work, some people are blockers in work. If we look at these kind of what is a drowner, drowners drown in a difficult situation. They drown in their fears or their judgments. Their mind becomes like a hurricane with powerful emotional but not necessarily true statements. And it's something that you need to be very careful of if you're a drowner. You'll tend to say things are a disaster, everything's ruined, it's all over now. Very dramatic, very emotional, very almost powerful statements, but they're not necessarily true. And so drowners need to learn that just because their emotion is high and just because their thoughts are very, very strong, it doesn't mean they're true. The opposite side of the coin is the blocker. Blockers push through difficult situations by force of will. They block it out, often using food, maybe work, social media, alcohol, shopping. There's lots of different ways we can block out our thoughts. And blockers avoid as much as possible and think that they are relying on their mental strength. What is very interesting is that a blocker will eventually drown. So they might block it out with eating pizza, they might block it out with eating chocolate, drinking beer, whatever, going on social media, and then they'll drown. One day it'll hit them, they'll drown. So it's not as if it works as a coping strategy. Maybe if it did, I would be kind of open for it to maintain, but it doesn't work because generally blockers will find they suddenly get the fear and it collapses in on them. And it can be very stressful for blockers to be married to drowners because drowners tend to up the ante, ratchet up the emotion. And as that emotional person is ratcheting up, the blocker brings it down, tries to get everybody to chill, tries to get everybody to relax. And they think that's going to make the drowner more relaxed. It doesn't. The drowner thinks if I ratchet it up even further, if I really freak out, this kind of emotionless person in front of me will suddenly start becoming emotional, and that's not how blockers work. And so they're on two different channel streams missing each other, and what drowners need to do is seek out the reality of a situation, and what blockers need to do is look at the monster under the rug. And neither find it easy to do those solutions, but they're really important. It's worth repeating. Drowners need to look at the reality, not their emotional overwrought version of events, but the reality of events. And blockers also need to look at the reality of events. They need to look at the monster under the rug. And so if you look at how stress impacts us, impacts our body in extraordinary ways. So many people with digestive problems. If you think about it, when you're stressed, your muscles are constricting, your digestive pipes are literally tight, and so your digestive system kicks off. Your breathing, anybody with asthma, any sort of breathing issues, that again, it's constricted. As it says in the circle there, headaches, frequent infections, muscular tension, fatigue, being tired all the time is often a sign of tension, skin irritation, rashes, breathlessness. Then on the beneath that, the emotions of somebody who feels stressed, they can lose a lot of confidence. They can be very fussy, very neurotic about details. They want to go over things and over things. They can be very irritable. It's often an under highlighted phenomenon is how irritable rage and anxious rage can take over a person, and they can feel incredibly angry, and it's because of stress and anxiety. Depression, anger, anxiety, apprehension, they're all the emotions very, very common to people who have stress and anxiety. Then on the other side of the circle here, your mind, you're worrying, you're overthinking, muddled thinking, loss of ability to cope. You mightn't have an ability to concentrate, nightmares. You can become very indecisive. You might procrastinate all the time, negativity, and sometimes you procrastinate a lot and then you suddenly make very hasty, impulsive decisions. And the last one would be your behavior. You might be very accident prone because you're jittery and distracted. You might be overeating to calm down. You might be undereating. There's a loss of sex drive. Your libido is very often impacted by stress and anxiety. Some people drink more alcohol. Some people eat more. Some people eat less. Definitely sleeplessness. Again and again and again, insomnia comes up as an issue around stress and anxiety. And a restless, jittery, I can't relax. I try and sit down and watch something, but I can't relax. So I pick up social media. Then I throw that down and I start something else. And then I start a conversation. Real sign of stress and anxiety when you can't just relax and watch one thing or do one thing. So this is a very common five strategy plan for anxiety that a lot of people would use. I'd use it often within my therapy. Number one, you approach your anxiety like a scientist. You take a bird's eye view about what is happening. So you're trying to be like an anthropologist saying, oh, look at my body. It's starting to get clammy. My hands are getting sweaty. My brain is racing. I'm feeling really stressed. My thoughts are racing and my heart is palpitating. So you're trying to take a step out as if you're a bird up above on a roof, looking down at you becoming stressed. And you realize your face maybe is becoming red. Then you think, will distraction work? Like a scientist, distraction might work. It very often works, and it's often underused as a tool. You redirect your attention. You might do a Sudoku puzzle. You might do Scrabble on your phone, or you might go outside to your garden, drink a glass of water, cool water. That's all. That's the just distracting, redirecting your attention. Some people count back from 107s for no other reason than you're trying to redirect your attention, or they start chatting with somebody else. Whatever works for you. Some people, they get distracted by physical exercise. So you try to redirect. Then number three, you breathe mindfully. You slow your breathing down. You breathe in through your nose, you hold it, and then you breathe out through your mouth. No other reason to do this than slowing your mind. For no other reason than you're trying to get out of that emotional, heightened brain, which is fast, into a slower, more analytical, more intelligent brain. Number four, you watch out for the tyranny of the shoulds. Karen Horney brought up that great phrase, the tyranny of the shoulds. As in, you turn your shoulds into coulds. You might be saying, I should go to work. I should ring up so-and-so. I should do this. I should do the other. And you say, I could go to work, but I feel highly stressed and very sick. And actually, I'm not going to go to work. Or I should ring this person, but I could. And you want to change it to I could. And actually, I'm not going to, or I will, depending on the circumstance. The point is, you're giving yourself the choice with the could. The tyranny of the shoulds is like a heavy weight upon your back. And then the last one is, remember, thoughts come and go. And though they might be powerful, they are not necessarily accurate. You see your thoughts like a leaf in a stream. Here comes another thought. Here comes another thought. You're acting like a scientist, watching out what you can do. So that's a really handy kind of 5-step plan. First, you're like a scientist. 2, you try to distract. 3, you take a breath. 4, Watch out for your shoulds. And 5, remember your thoughts come and go. Your thoughts are not necessarily two. People give too much almost credence to our thoughts these days. Learning the art of stopping is a gift you can give yourself for life, not just for anxiety, for stress, but for everything. You stop thinking, you stop your emotional thought train taking over, because so many people feel their brain is like a train and they can't stop it, and you can. And the way you stop it is slow yourself down. Try to preempt it so that before your avalanche of emotion becomes an avalanche, try and get it when it's a snowball or even a snowflake. Try to preempt your stress before you get really, really stressed. Stop being busy, just pause, become aware for a moment, and tap into how you're feeling. Then resume with what you were doing with some added inner knowledge. So you might be waiting in a queue in SuperValu, and rather than getting stressed and impatient about how slow the supermarket queue is going, you could pause and say, I'm going to learn the art of stopping. And I'm just going to stand here and just check in with how I'm feeling and how's my day. And have I been getting stress? And has the snowball turned into a bigger snowball? Has the snowflake turned into the snowball, turned into the avalanche? Where am I with my stress levels? And just, it's a kind of a way of checking in with yourself. Every time there's a red light when you're in a car, take a breath, learn the art of stopping, and just pause for a moment. This is a great acronym for people who get stressed. Stop. S, stop what you're doing for a moment. T, take a breath in and out. Slow it down. Breathe in through your nose, stop, breathe out through your mouth. O, observe your thoughts, emotion, and body. A lot of us take attention here in our shoulders. We might soften our jaw, soften our shoulders, see if there's any stress in your face. You're just taking a moment to stop. And P, proceed with something that might support you. So you might think, I need to take a break. I'm going to leave the room and I'm going to go down and get a glass of water. Or I'm going out to the garden for no other reason than I need to take a break. Or I'm going to stop in 15 minutes and I'm going to ring my friend because I need chinwag. I need to give some venting out. So it's a beautiful acronym, STOP. Stop what you're doing, take a breath, observe yourself, and proceed with something that will support you. Maybe even a plan that will support you. It's a beautiful gift to give yourself the art of stopping, because if you don't learn the art of stopping, you will fall into the stress cycle, which is, you might start off by sleeping poorly because of any old reason, maybe a car alarm went off during the night. Then an extra task might be added to the workload that day. Already, that snowflake is turning into a snowball. Instant panic with the extra workload. You can't do it as there's not enough time. Then you're in the red zone. You feel helpless and overwhelmed. Physical symptoms, negative feelings. You might feel overwhelmed. I can't do this. I hate this job. And you kind of lost it. And you haven't kind of got reality at this stage. You're overestimating the danger. You're underestimating your ability to cope. And you work late. You take work home. And what happens then? You sleep badly. And the stress cycle continues. And ultimately, physically long-term damage happens, and mentally long-term damage. And by what I mean by that is you succumb to maybe panic attacks, anxiety episodes, irritability, sleeplessness, insomnia, digestive problems, heart problems, headaches, tension headaches. There's so many different ways they can manifest, depending on whether you're behavioral or whether you're cognitive, which way it will go. But they catch up. The body, no, the body keeps the score. Some people think this is a very interesting way of explaining how the brain reacts when you're hit with something quickly. And so it's the fight or flight response, how we all know it, but it's also known as the fight, flight, freeze, or appease. So some people, when they're hit with stress, and you need a bit of self-awareness. What do? I know I fight. Some people, if they're hit with stress, they fight back. They argue the point, for example, in the workplace. Somebody who's got the flight response, they run. They go to the loo, they duck, they suddenly look into their handbag, they do anything to avoid it. So they flight, they run, and they might hide behind the group consensus because they are not going to argue anything. Freeze are the people who just literally disengage. They literally freeze. If you got mugged, you would freeze. Disengage, they shut up, they don't hide behind anything, they just literally keep their head down and say absolutely nothing. And then appease, they try to appease with whoever is causing the distress. And that doesn't work because sometimes that person who's causing the distress is a bully or isn't right. So you need to be aware of and the fighting person, you might be fighting the wrong person. So you need to be very aware of where you're at with these. Which one do you respond instinctively? This is really deep in your instinct. So, there's no blame attached to any of them. None of them are great. And all of them are our instincts. And you could argue for all of them, or you could argue for none of them. But you are probably very regularly doing one of them, and better to be self-aware than not. So this is a nice little strategy for people who are feeling anxious and the snowball is coming, they're rising, the tension is rising, and you've breathed, you've breathed in, you hold it, you breathe out. A lot of people find that if you breathe in maybe for 3, hold it for 2, breathe out for 5. So you breathe in and you breathe out longer than you breathe in. And then you do these little things like using your senses. You look for 5 things you see, like curtain, wall, light, door, desk, book. I don't know if that was 5. Then 4 things you can feel. I can feel my jeans on me. I can feel my socks. I can feel my jumper. I can feel the back of the chair. 3 things you can hear. I can hear outside traffic. I can hear a door slamming. I can hear my computer. 2 things you can smell. Can't really smell anything. I can smell oranges, I think. And then 1 thing I can taste. I can taste the cup of tea I had earlier on. I can taste it in my mouth. For no other reason are you doing that but to calm your mind, distract your mind, move it from the thought train, the emotional thought train that you're in, bring it to somebody else. Other people think it's quite handy as a tool to say, how will I feel in 5 hours? How will I feel in 5 days? How will I feel in 5 weeks? How will I feel in 5 months about this situation? How will I feel in 5 years about this situation? It gives you perspective, and perspective is really important. All the time you're trying to get into the reality of the situation as opposed to the very emotional situation that you might be in where you're kind of taken over. So my last slide is to remind you of the importance of breathing because it's so incredibly important. As it says, fully breathe for calm, to convey steadiness, to show confidence, to anchor yourself, and to connect with your deepest self. We all have it. We underuse it. It's the first thing that hits when we get tense because our breathing gets shorter and quicker. It impacts our entire body. Yoga, all those amazing, amazing disciplines are all centered around breath work. Don't underestimate it. Do use it. Make sure that you find the tools that you need that will bring you out of stress and anxiety in your future. Thank you very much.